it's Haley, and today I'm going to be doing the Bookmoji challenge. So this video is a little bit different. It's kind of inspired by the emoji book tag, which I did before, but this one, with that one you go to your most, I think it's like your top 5 most frequently used emojis, but that's really limiting. So what I decided to do for this one is kind of like emoji association. I tweeted out and I texted a few of my friends to send me a bunch of really random emojis. So kind of like the most random ones that you can think of, the ones that hardly ever get used, and then basically what I'm going to do is I picked a few from there and I'm going to look at the emojis and then pick a book off of my bookshelf that I think goes with it and briefly talk about it, because there are about 25 emojis that I have picked out, so there are quite a few, so I can't really like go on and on about a lot of them, but I'm basically going to say why I associate that emoji with that book. So you'll kind of get the hang of it as I go along. So yeah, let's just get into it. So the first emoji that I have is the airplane emoji, and for this one I associate it with the Codename Verity duology by Elizabeth Wein. I find that this one, it's all about pilots and it deals with World War II, so even though it's a modern day kind of like jet, it does still make me think of this book, since I think that's really the only one that a central part of the theme is the fact that these two protagonists are pilots. Also, really love this series. I have reviews for both of these books. I will link them down below. Any of the books that I talk about, I will link a review down below for it if I have one, so definitely go and check it out if you want to know more thoughts about any of these books. The next emoji is the one that has someone who I'm presuming is Mother Nature, who's blowing like cold, she looks like she's cold, blowing snow or whatever, and for this one I chose the Snow Like Ashes trilogy by Sara Raasch because it has snow, it deals with cold, it does deal with all of the other seasons as well, but you focus mainly on the Winter Kingdom and them trying to regain their power, so the whole idea of coldness and kind of that magical power of coldness definitely fits with this series. Then I also have the snowman emoji, and for that one I chose Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. This one really deals with cold again. It's not really like a happy kind of cold, but it is kind of the innocent children who are placed in this terrible situation. They're in concentration camps in the middle of Siberia, so it's super cold and that's a huge threat to their survival. So I think that one, kind of the innocence that the snowman represents really kind of is interesting in terms of the tragedy that's happening within this book, but the innocent characters that are placed within that tragedy. Next is the tornado emoji, and honestly the only one that I could think of that definitely goes with this one is Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. It's a whole retelling of, or reimagining rather, of the story of the Wizard of Oz. So the girl is brought by a tornado to, what's it called? Oz. How did I forget what it was called? She's brought to Oz, so really that's the only way you can get to Oz anyways. It's the main form of transport, so it definitely fits with this book. Next is the poop emoji, which I chose ZAC and Mia by AJ Betts, and it's not because I thought this book was really crappy, but this is the only book that I can think of off the top of my head that literally deals with the topic of pooping. That it's in this book, it like is in the very beginning of the book, it starts off by talking about poop, so that definitely goes with this book. Next is the little conch seashell, and this one, other than Lord of the Flies, I was trying to keep this to YA. This one makes me think of the Siren by Kiera. Not a huge fan of this book, but it does definitely have to do with like the ocean, the beach, that whole kind of idea, and the conch shell really makes me think of that, especially because you listen to the ocean in a conch shell, like you can hear the ocean through it, and she talks to the ocean a lot in this book, so I think it really relates. Next is the little crown, which definitely goes with Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I can't really get into it too much, but it just, I mean, queen, crown, it all makes sense. Next is the little teal dress, and for this one I chose The Selection by Kiera because she's wearing a teal dress, so it definitely makes me think of that. Next is the little cello or violin. It's a violin-like instrument, and this could actually fit with quite a few books that I've read. I think there's like 3 that it could fit with, including the selection that I just talked about, but I decided to go with Passenger by Alexandra Bracken because the main character, it begins with her having, I don't know what instrument it is, I believe it's a violin, her concert for that and kind of her coming out as a violinist. So that's, music is a central central part of this book. These next two I kind of combined, so it's the joystick and the little kind of 8-bit little creature thing, like video game dude character, whatever. And for this one I went with Ready Player One because it deals all with that kind of 80s pop culture and video games. Most of this book takes place in a virtual reality kind of video game thing, and it definitely fits with the idea of the joystick and all that stuff. This is just, those emojis fit perfectly with this book. Next is the little robot emoji, and the only book that I could think of that actually deals with kind of robots is Cinder by Marissa Meyer, because our main character is, it's a retelling of Cinderella, but the main character is a cyborg, so she is part robot-ish thingy, and she also has a little robot, Aiko, that she is like best friends with, so it just fits. Next is the angry cat face. So for this one I went with Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins because one, we have Katniss, who isn't exactly the most warm and fuzzy character, but she is really badass, but also we have Buttercup, who is definitely an angry cat. Next we have the little alien face, and for this one I went with The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey because this whole book deals with, it's a dystopian that deals with aliens coming to Earth, and they are kind of taking over the human race and wiping it out entirely in waves, so it definitely fits with the aliens, but they're not so like kind of cute and creepy, they're actually just straight up creepy. Next is the little kind of starry sky emoji. This is my best friend's favorite emoji, and it really makes me think of these Starbound trilogy by Amy Kaufman and Meagan Spooner. So the first book is These Broken Stars, then I have the third, I don't have the second yet, but these have that whole, like, the covers just really make me think of it, and it all takes place in space, so it fits. Next is the world map emoji, and this one makes me think of Amy and Roger's Epic Detour by Morgan Matson because it deals with a road trip, but it's kind of against the map because they go against the plan that the mom has come up with, and they decide to go on their own little detour to see the world as they are taking their journey. So it does really fit with the map emoji, but it also is kind of anti-map, so it's interesting. Next is the little drama faces emoji, the things that you see in the theater all the time, the like happy and the sad face masks. I don't know what they're actually called, but for this one I decided to go with ILLUMINAE by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff because this one really fits with it because it's just dramatic the whole entire way through. It's just non-stop drama, so it just fits. Next is the two little dancing twins emoji, and for this one I decided to go with I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson because I know there are a few other books that deal with twins, but this is the only one that I can think of off the top of my head right now. They're not both female twins, but it still does deal with kind of that idea of being so similar but trying to kind of grow apart and how they're dealing with that. So twinnery, being twins, is a central part of this book. Next is the roller coaster emoji, and for this one I went with Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon because this book was an emotional roller coaster for me, and I still don't really know how I feel about it, so this one definitely fits with that. And plus it's kind of the idea of getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that you've never done before and something you're afraid of, which roller coasters are something I am absolutely terrified of, so it goes nicely. It just pairs. Yes, you get it. Next is the little movie camera, and for this one I decided to go with Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour because this book takes place in Hollywood. The main character is a amateur set designer, so it really centers around the movie industry, and that was one of the coolest parts of this book. Next is the little snail emoji, and for this one I went with the Ruby Red Trilogy by Kirsten Gier because it moved at a snail's pace. Next is the dragon emoji, and for this one I went with one of the two dragon books other than Harry Potter on my shelf, actually other than Throne of Glass as well, on my shelf, and that is Seraphina by Rachel Hartman. This book deals with dragons that disguise as humans, and it's like the relationships, the political like relationship between the dragons and the humans is really rocky, so they're trying to kind of figure that out, and it's really interesting in this book. I didn't feel like it was dealt with very well, but it was a pretty cool dragon story overall. Next is the little love letter, and for this one I could have gone with one of two options, but one of them I already mentioned, so I'm going with To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. This one fits better anyways. It's literally a story about how she wrote, the main character wrote all these love letters to all the boys she loved, and then they accidentally get sent out, and that's how the whole plot starts, and it gets rolling from there, so it's all about these love letters. Next is the little bird emoji, and for this one I went with The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslye Walton. This definitely fits with the bird emoji because a bird is a central symbol of this book, so it just perfectly fits. Next is the emoji with the smiley face with its head wrapped. So for this one I went with Looking for Alaska by John Green because I am concussed. It deals with a concussion. It just fits. On that note, next is the champagne popping emoji, and for that one I went with The Fault in Our Stars by John Green because there's a whole thing with champagne in here. It's also a central symbol of the book, and it's just a really lovely part of it. Next is the jockey who's riding the horse, and obviously he's riding a horse. But for this one I went with The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater because this book deals all with kind of a mythological version of horse racing, and it's really the only book that I can think of that deals with horse racing. And finally we have the toadstool emoji, and for this one I went with Splintered by A.G. Howard because this is a Alice in Wonderland retelling, and the toadstool is another central symbol in Alice in Wonderland with like the one side will make her bigger, one side will make her smaller, the whole thing with the caterpillar. It's all a phallic symbol, but it's definitely a central symbol to the book. So that is all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it didn't end up being too long because right now it's like 24 minutes, so I have a lot of footage to go through. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for sending me emojis. Let me know if you want me to do this a video like this again because I think it's kind of a cool idea and it's really fun to kind of see what emojis like fit with certain books. And yeah, so like I said, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!